seen a smile so big on my little Lord lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, peeps. As Adele says, yeah, baby. Jeremy's in the house. Who we got here? Steve's with us. How you doing, Steve? I know you had a busy day, dude. Glad that you're able to spend some time. James Shembry, got a bite. I see some new toques for Got a Bite. If you're looking for a new toque, something different for the winter, make sure to give our buddy James a call. See if we can get a new toque. Betty's in the house. How you doing? Ladies and gents, absolutely. Fernando, how you doing, my friend? Luke, wish I could make that kids event. If you have a link, please put up the dates and share that so that anyone that's up in that area, and I forget the actual area, forgive me, but I'd love to make it to that event. Sounds like a lot of fun. But Luke, as I said, if you could just throw up the dates and where people can go to find out more. But maybe they want to take their kids out on the hard water for the first time, second time. Maybe they do it a lot. But needless to say, those events are awesome when it comes to getting kids into fishing. Eve, how you doing, my friend? Always a pleasure to see you. Tony's in the house. Richard Dunlop, how you doing, my friend? Klassen's here. Lloyd's with us. Jeremy, you've been out in the hard water up your way. I would imagine by now it's safe enough. I don't know about out in the main body of water, but needless to say, I'm sure you're up fishing if you've got a chance. Pete LeDuc's in the house already. He's got his sewing machine packed and ready to go. Pete, you been out on the hard water at all? I would imagine by now up that way in Sault Ste. Marie, you've got lots of no issues there whatsoever. Not as of yet. Hopefully this weekend, Jeremy, I'm with you. Because as it is right now, we were just talking about it before we went live. There is safe ice in certain areas. You got to be very, very careful. I know John White was helping Jay Barnucz in regards to navigating Couchiching, and it seems like there is some safe ice up there. I certainly don't want to say where because I don't want anybody to hold me or anybody else to it. But I think Couch is probably one of the safer bets. I don't really want to speak too much about anywhere else because from what I've heard, it's very hit or miss. But at the end of the day, folks, and I know if you were on, various fishing sites, I know everybody wants to get out fishing, and I'm sure the lads are going to be talking about it in their segments. Just be safe, man. Like I'm seeing release videos, which I absolutely love, especially with the big fish, big walleye in particular. But and as much as I'd love to share them, like the ice is paper thin. I care about you. I don't want to see you guys get yourselves in trouble. And as much as we all want to get out and enjoy some fishing, because it's been long overdue for a lot of us. It's been long overdue. I get it. Everybody's jonesing, but be safe, man. Holy smokes. Again, I can't emphasize that enough, but huts are out on local lakes, Pete. I'm sure they are, but needless to say, you will be doing your best to get out there. I'm sure in the very near future. Charles is in the house. How you doing, Charles? You've got a kids event as well coming up. Please, if you have the link or dates that you can send us so that we can get that posted. Anybody up in the Elliott Lake area who is listening or is going to listen to this show will have the ability to take their kids out and experience some hard water happiness. What's that? Sorry, Jeremy. Yes, a buddy of mine was out doing on Couch this week. So as I said, from what I've gathered, Couch right now is pretty safe. All points east and especially west, they have nothing but safe ice. In fact, it's probably the ice thickness is probably becoming a nuisance at this point. For folks out in Saskatchewan, even Alberta, places in Manitoba, just I think they're at 36 inches by now. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Was wondering since I fish in 8 condition pike, obviously my favorite species. Was wondering, 8 frozen guys doesn't bother me that much, gentlemen. Rain X works. Interesting. Rain X as a tip on your guides. Makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks for that, Manny. Corey's in the house. How we doing? I'll get to our announcements real quick because we do have an action-packed show. Lots of information going to be shared tonight. So stay tuned to that. Of course, the lads will be coming up. And Mike will be joining us at the end to discuss more about the Winter Fish Fest and everything that's going to be coming up with that greatness. Of course, the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, not to jump too far ahead because we're only in January. It still feels like New Year. Like New Year was what? Like yesterday? Holy smokes. This year's going to fly by like last year did. Spring Fishing and Boat Show is February 7th and 19th. We will be there. OFC Nation will be there. Mike will probably be there. Steve Shaw's going to be there. Moose, Jeff, the whole gang. So come down to the International Center in Mississauga. We will see you there February 17th and 19th. And right after that, the Ottawa show. Can't wait for the Ottawa Boat and Outdoor Show. We're going to be there with Big Jim, who's going to be up next. That's February 23rd and to the 26th. It's at the EY Center. Found out a little bit more. EY Center, which is at 4899 Uplands Drive. If you don't know where it is, Google it. 4899 Uplands Drive. It's the EY Center. Again, 23rd to the 26th. There's going to be a whole whack of us there, a whole bunch of CFNers. We are going to have a booth thanks to our good buddy Jim. So we'll see you there. Stop by, say hello. Come over to the kids' pond if you have one. There's going to be kids fishing over at the pond. Lots of great stuff. Lots of great presenters. And again, it's right after the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. It is going to be a busy couple of weeks, but we're really looking forward to seeing you all there. Vaseline in my gut. Yeah, another great one. Send your kids' events information to CFN. Steve, awesome idea. We love sharing that stuff, especially the kids' derbies. Anything to get these kids out on the hard water, especially with everything that's going on in the world. We got to get them fishing, get their attention directed towards positiveness. Steve, thanks for that. That is the Ottawa Boat Outdoor Show. That's the webpage. So head over there, have a look. January 20. No, it is February 23rd to 26th. Manny, out in Ottawa. PM if you'd like to order CFN. Yes, absolutely. These are, I can't believe how many of these we've sold. It's absolutely awesome to see all you CFNers out on that. April 2nd, let's not forget about the comp. Absolutely. Thanks so much for mentioning that, Jeremy. Again, hopefully we're going to be there as well. Again, it's still off in the distance. It seems so far away, but April 2nd, it will come very, very quickly. And of course, we will be jonesing just to get back into the fishing community, fraternity, whatever you want to call it, sorority. But just bringing us folks back together. It's like our calling. It's our reunion, if you will. But April 2nd, absolutely. The CanCast in Peterborough. I have a feeling it's going to be a bigger show this year than last year in the sense that it's going to probably be in two buildings, the main arena as well as the building that it was in last year. I'm not 100% sure. Kyle Carruthers and the boys are putting that all together, but I dare say, regardless of what it looks like, it will be just as good, if not better, than last year's show. So we'd love to see you out there on the 2nd. Jeremy, have they decided if it's going to be a 2-day event or just a one? Be interesting to see if you put that up in regards to that. Of course, I can't talk about anything without mentioning our CFN retreat. Of course, we're going to be back up at Forwood for our 5th annual CFN retreat. Looking forward to seeing all you folks there. It is great fishing, great fun, and fantastic memories. Jamie Dunlop is a fantastic hoot. Of course, that is the CFN official boat. Richard never ceases to amaze us with the amount of fish that he catches. Richard, we're hoping to see you up there this year. Richard Elliott. Of course, the Downs family will be with us. Mark Elbert, we love to see you. I believe Tyler's already booked. Listen, the camp is half booked already. In fact, I think we've added a couple, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, some surprise guests that are going to be coming with us as well. So the travel date is usually the date just before the official start, which is August 13th. That is the travel day, which is the Sunday. The official start is August 14th. to the 19th, which is Saturday. And by that time, Warren and Doris are looking forward to kicking this out. No, I'm just kidding. But as I said, if you want to go up there and catch fish just like these, and be a part of a great community, a great family, spend some great time with some great people, this is one of the events that we are hosting at Horwood Lake Lodge. And of course, we can't thank the folks up there enough. So make sure you go over to this website right here, Steve, right on cue, www.horwoodlakelodge.com to book your stay. As I said, right now the camp is half booked. So please don't delay. We're telling you now, we're giving you lots of headway and notice so that you folks can book your time off and get that done. So it is just a one day, right on. So as I said, if you are following these folks, Sean, Mark, Kyle, or just about anybody that's affiliated with the show, they will give you any updates as they become available. So yes, absolutely, Richard, we will see you there. Still space for the retreat. There's Doris. She's chiming in officially to talk more about the retreat. And the best thing about it, and I don't know how these folks did it. I really don't know how they're doing it. But it's still the same price as last year with everything going up. Think about that. Food, gas, insurance, how they've managed to do that for our CFN community and our CFN family. Can't thank the Renkies enough for doing that, because that truly is something special when you can keep the prices the same as they were last year. Awesome. So reach out to Doris. And of course, if you were with us last year in September at Camp McIntosh, it's happening again this year. It is the second annual Spoil Nation CFN retreat. Again, it's right at the mouth of the French River. We had a lot of fun, a lot of fish, had some great stories. Of course, you have the opportunity to catch some really big fish because, of course, it's Georgian Bay. It's right at the mouth of where the French River dumps in to Georgian Bay. So you have the potential to catch fish just like this. So again, if you want to join us, it is September 22nd, which is the Friday, to the 24th. Please get in touch with Tracy or Andre over at Camp McIntosh. Steve Shaw has helped us out in a huge, huge way. That is the website. So again, Horwood in August, Camp McIntosh in September. Now I want to talk about the Winter Fish Fest. Please listen up. If you are a family that wants to participate in a free derby, free tournament, and it's going to cost you absolutely nothing, and you could potentially win some great prizes, the Winter Fish Fest, it starts February 1st. But this year, we're going back to our roots. We're going to include a Facebook edition. So how the Facebook is going to look is it's all going to be shared on our CFN Fish Off Facebook page. During the month between 1st and the 28th of February, there will be no other posting other than posts of fish, anything that is shared within the tournament. But before we get started, before we unveil all the rules, Mike's going to be with us at the end of the show to talk more about it. How it's going to work is you need to reach out to me. You need to PM me your family that is going to be involved and a picture that you want associated with it, because how it's going to work is your picture will be a post on the CFN Fish Off Facebook page. All you will do is the species that come up week to week, you will be posting in the comments a picture of your fish with a special little something that's added. Obviously, in the past, those who have done the Fish Off understand they'll usually have like a hashtag or a video. No videos, it will be a picture, but you will have to do something in this picture that will legitimize the fish, that it was caught like this year, not something that was done last year, but perhaps maybe you've got a few of these type of pictures that it will fly under the, no, I'm kidding. But you'll have to do something in the picture. We will announce that later. But in the meantime, if you are a family that is looking to participate, as I said, in a free tournament to win some fantastic prizes, like these tackle boxes, like these rod combos, like these Meads jigs, like some Ugly Boys baits that I don't have up here. Unfortunately, I forgot that. Ugly Boys baits. There's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to be added as well. We're going to fill the tackle boxes, and we're going to be randomly drawing these weekly. But to enter on Facebook, you have to PM me, and make sure you do it soon because it starts on the 1st, We need your family name and the picture that you want to use as your front page. That way we can identify it's, say, the Lowen family, maybe the Renke, maybe the Shaw family, maybe the Glencow family, who knows, whatever family it is, whether you're going to have one person participating or a dozen. It doesn't matter. There's no limit to how many people can participate within your family. So again, on the CFN Fish Off Facebook page, make sure you send me a picture that you want to use as your post. That'll be your flagship, and then you'll be entering all of your fish in the comments. That way we can get back to building our community. And as I said, stay tuned to how or what you have to do in order to legitimize your fish. I am all done with announcements. The gents have been very, very patient. We're going to get to them right after this. We're going to be talking to Jim, and here is a word from Shimano. Big Jim, how we doing, Jim?
I'm alive for now, anyway.
Attaboy. You've had a busy week, busy day especially.
Yeah, today was nuts. I had so many things I had to do. I've almost got them all done. I just got a couple more to do. I had 2 or 3 people drop in I wasn't expecting, and then I had my buddy Mark LaBelle from Petawawa that does weapons of mass destruction, all the jigs and stuff. He dropped in with his lovely wife and visited for a while, and he dropped me off some of their brand new chatterbaits. It's sort of like my favorite color, but now they've added that sort of scaly look stuff down the side.
Wow.
So he dropped me off a handful of them, so I'm good for next year.
Well, listen, you've been good leading up to this year when it comes to those chatterbaits. Man, you made them work. When we were up there during the summer and early fall, holy crap, those things, they're like a dinner bell for these fish.
It's also where you're fishing too, Scotty.
This is true. The front of the boat. The front of the boat. That was the boat. Oh, just kidding.
The operator, I'm happy to say, still has something to do with it.
That's it. Absolutely. Well, you know what? As I said, it's always a pleasure to see someone who knows as much as you do school some of us every once in a while on how good you actually are. Jim, speaking of that, I know something that I saw on the weekend, and it just brought to mind some of the things that we think about when it comes to ice fishing.
Yeah.
And as we talked about just before going live, it really hasn't been around for as long as we may think it has been. But one thing I wanted to ask you, is there anything, because we talk about electronics, we talk about new baits, is there anything that you do now that you used to do when you first started ice fishing?
Yeah, it's, Scotty, I didn't ice fish really like 20 years ago was when I started, because I always, if I wanted to drink beer, I could sit in the garage and drink beer with a heater. I didn't have to be out on the lake sitting on a 5-gallon pail, freezing my butt for an hour or 2, and then going home. And that's, you hear me talk about it all the time, the way ice fishing has grown up.
Yep.
It has really, it's happened right within my later years here. and I'm so blessed that I got to see it happen and go right from the ground up. Uh, One thing, there's a lot of things. Like I think the biggest thing ever for ice fishing has been as we talked about, the shelters.
Yeah.
Having some kind of a pop-up HUD or a flip over. Like my first ones were fish traps. When Gens came up here and spent the week with me there 2 years in a row with Dennis, who used to own Clam at the time, sent them up here, and they were pioneering ice fishing into Ontario. And I was right on the front of that and got to be involved, and it was so cool. It was absolutely. I'm just blessed to have gotten to do that, eh? But some of the things I joked to you earlier about. One of the things that's still great for me is a bucket, the 5-gallon pail. But I'm not sitting on it now. I use it to carry my stuff around in a lot of times. I'll have 3 or 4 rods in it. Although there's nice little rod holders and things, opening and closing that stuff on the ice and dragging it all with you. When you go out, you usually have a pretty good idea. You got three or 4 rods. You got it covered. For what you're planning to do for the day. Not that I'm not always got 1 or 2 sitting underneath the seat somewhere that would be for something drastically different. Like when I'm out looking for crappies in a basin and I come across a school of walleyes sitting out there minding their business, well, I'm not moving. You know what I mean? I'll take whatever comes. Just like when you're bass fishing and you start catching, 35-inch pike, you don't leave them. You stay and have some fun, But the 5-gallon pail just continues to be what it was, except it isn't a seat now. It's something that you use to carry your stuff around in, and maybe even perhaps if you decide to bring home a few crappies or a walleye or 2, you chuck them in the bucket too.
There you go.
Yeah, in fact, I used to have a little piece of plastic that I brought all the time, and it was just it was a what do you call it there? Coroplast, like you see signs made of, and it was cut just a little smaller than the bucket. And I would have that in the bottom of the bucket, and all my rods in my would be in it. And if I caught a few fish, I'd pull out the rods, pull out the piece of coroplast, throw in the bluegills, the crappies, whatever, put the piece of plastic back, and then the rods would sit on top of the plastic. So you didn't get the rods all slimed up and everything else. But that's one of the things that I mean. Shelters just get better and better every year. Tip-ups get better and better every year. The line, we talked earlier about the line, seeing it was, the ice fishing line being made by Sunline. The lures. I mean, there isn't just a jig and wrap now. Now, not that I don't think it could still be the number one ever. Yeah. They all have their time and place, but I mean, everybody has them now. Yeah. There's the changes in spoons. We still have. Everybody fish with spoons, but they're still different. And if you go back and you get the old ones, they still work. It's just that they definitely are continuing to build things that are better for ice fishing. Whether it be the suits,
the clothing.
Clothing.
All of that has definitely changed. It's what was interesting is you talk about the shacks and you see folks that do their DIY, how-tos when it comes to building a fish hut. And it's still the same, it's either a 4x4, 6x6, what have you. It still has the roof. It has the windows. It's got a door. They all look very similar. You see folks that are, huddling around a tarp just to get the wind off them. We've made certain advances, obviously, as you mentioned, but then you look at the tip-ups. And when you look at some of those black and white pictures and you look at some of the tip-ups today, outside of some of them maybe being plastic, there's not a lot of difference. They almost look exactly the same as they did 30, 40 years ago.
Yep.
It's amazing. Absolutely.
The thing was with the wooden ones, once they were frozen in, they were there.
Yeah.
The plastic ones, if you don't bend them, like anything else, if you bend it, it breaks. The ice comes off them almost right away, Just have to give it a little, just a little jostle and it pops off. It doesn't get into it like the wood. I mean, how many tip-ups were left at the lake with the line frozen through the ice into the lake? People just leave them. I mean, I've probably found 20 of those in my life. So if I've found 20, how many were really left out there,
That's a whole other topic when it comes to making sure we keep our campsites and our fishing sites and everything else clean. David, we truly appreciate, folks like you that do that, that go that extra mile when it comes to muling out a hut or anything else for the sake of the family to keep, as you said, save the marriage. But yeah, happy wife, happy life. If she's cold, you're gonna have a bad time, and it's not
But you
gonna
see
last.
guys with those big pop-up ones now, and there's the two kids, the father, the mother, everybody fishing inside. They're
Yeah,
in their shirt sleeves, having a good time.
100%.
You know, and they used to do that in the old days too, in the wooden ones. But you had to drag it out. Then it got frozen in.
Yeah.
Then Dad had to spend 2 weeks out there dumping salt and chipping with a spud to try and get the thing out. Then the car would get stuck on the ice, and it was the number of horror shows that you see just before the huts were supposed to be off. That's why they start getting them numbered now. It started that years ago.
Totally true. And Mike, great comment you bring up about the dogwood. I've seen this firsthand with our First Nations who took us out on a back lake up in the Timmins area, and they showed us some of their traditional styles of fishing. And we say traditional, but they adhere to it. When it comes to rod and reel, they would prefer not to use that in hindsight when it comes to some of the more traditional means. But yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it all. But it's funny, as much as things change, they still remain the same. But needless to say, if you guys have anything else
Serves
you
the
want to
same
share,
purpose. Yeah.
100%. Now, in regards to fishing, Jim, we've talked about it before, but we need to talk about it again. You and I are a part of many fishing sites, and we love to see folks and their incredible catches. Maybe a personal best, but when you look at some of the thicknesses in the ice, you got to shake your head. I know.
I was watching one the other day. There was a guy trying to get a pike out of the hole, and it's really hard to get them out of the hole when the ice is only this thick, because you can't get them started up the hole. There's nowhere, you know what I mean? It's almost impossible. And you're watching the guy moving around, and he's in a shelter, just one of the pop-ups, and he's in the shelter, and the water's going up and down in the hole like this. Like, I need no part of that.
And as I said, folks, I love seeing your fishing journeys. I love seeing some of your catches. I live vicariously through some of you, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure there's lots of us. But at the end of the day, we want you to stay safe. And I'm hoping for the majority of you folks that are watching, you do, that, there is a limit to what thickness of ice you're willing to travel on. I know sometimes when we were young and stupid, we did stupid things, and perhaps we can chalk it up to some of that. But at the end of the day, I have seen like ridiculously thin ice and folks setting up tents, doing release videos and what have you. As much as I truly appreciate all that, I'm just shocked to see.
Accidents do happen.
Yeah.
But they don't happen as often to the people who are careful.
Yeah.
Like an accident's when you go somewhere and there's, like he said, I don't like swimming in cold water.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the swimming part. It's being up to here in it with your arms on the ice and you're alone and you can't get out.
Yeah.
I know I have a buddy years ago who fell through on a pond on a farm skating. He wasn't ice fishing. He was skating. And when he went through, he made such a small hole. He was having a hard time getting himself out. And then fortunately, he broke some of the ice and he was eventually able to get the skates on the bottom. And he got a little bit of momentum, broke some more ice and he got out. But he barely made it back to the house. He had about probably, I bet it's 150 yards. And he was in the water for like four or 5 minutes. And he said like his body wasn't working right halfway back from the cold.
And that's, that's part and parcel, Jim, to why, as I said, folks don't understand, at the end of the day, falling through is one thing, but it's when you finally do get yourself out, it's that walk back to wherever it is you're going. I saw a picture, a guy was fishing on the edge of the ice at Long Point, and everybody was horrified to see him, at the edge. I don't know how thick the ice was. I don't want to throw the guy under the bus, but at the end of the day, if he fell in, not only would you have to struggle like a bugger to get yourself back out, but it was a long walk back to work, whatever got you there. And that's all I could think about. Your legs are going to quit. And then
I've never been able to figure it out why it's always a contest to see who's first to drown.
Yeah.
It's beyond me, it really is.
100%. Also wanted to bring up something that was near and dear to your heart and very important to all of us. Of course, the Just Fishing is available for all those who have not seen it, don't get it. It's up and available now. Smart looking front cover, I must say.
Yeah, when I saw that picture when Matt sent that over, and I looked at it and I said to him, I said, "Wow, we never had a catfish on the cover until 2023." And he sort of froze. It sort of was sort of like crickets for a second because it was only 2022 when he sent the picture, and they told me to be right up at the beginning of January, and so we put the old catfish on the cover. Catfish are coming right behind the burbot now, eh?
Yes.
Guys are, the Lindners were out fishing for them last week. Jimmy Linder was out there just talking about one after the other. And, where else, you go once you learn how to catch them. You catch 8, 10, 15 fish and they're all 7, 8, 9 pounds, or even if they're all 3 or 4 pounds, catfish fight like stink. And a lot of these places these guys are fishing, they're fishing in these wintering washout holes in smaller rivers. And they're getting fish up in the teens. A 12, 15 pound catfish a channel cat pulling down a hole can do to you.
Well, I certainly know what it can do in the springtime when there is no ice. I can't imagine what it's doing through the ice.
Yeah, I got one in the Ottawa River once. It was like 18, 19 pounds. Not ice fishing, just fishing fuzzy grubs and minnows for walleyes in the spring. And I tell you, I've never forgot that fish to this day. I just caught a walleye about 11 pounds. I threw right back to the same little edge of the eddy, and I got that. I thought I had like a 20-pound walleye or something, a giant fish anyway.
Jeez.
And I saw it, and I was like, buddy says, look how big it is. I never caught a fish that big, and you're making faces,
Well, speaking of making faces, there's a lot of smiles on these folks. If you want to learn more about some tricks that maybe you haven't tried through the hard water, there's a bunch of them on here. And of course, we're going to have the pleasure of seeing them at some of the upcoming shows, Jim, especially the Ottawa show. But in the meantime, head over to justfishing.ca and make sure you.
Yeah, and it's an all new platform now. It's really quick. That's why we had a little bit of trouble. We're a week later than we were last year with it. It's a whole new platform. The speed of it is incredible. We've got all the proper analytics on it now. I can tell what page you looked at. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
It's really, really cool.
Anything you want to mention about the upcoming Ottawa show? I know you got to get going, Jim. You've got lots to do.
Yeah. I was talking to John Anderson today, and him and Lisa Goodyear will be there. They're the muskie people from the Ottawa River. John is synonymous with muskies. He has Sarah come up and fish with him to do shows and stuff like that. And Lisa puts customers on more 50-inch fish, I think now than John does most years. But they're going to be there, and I managed to get the shows to round up a booth for Muskies Canada. They gave them some space in turn for being there and doing a couple of seminars, which they would have done anyway. But it's all good. One reminder before I go. You got your fishing reels sitting out there. Go to all your reels and loosen your drag for the winter. Your first fish this year, the drag's going to go and the line's going to snap because it's not working, and you're going to blame the reel. Go to your casting reels, loosen off the drag, and loosen off the cast control. There's a whole bunch of little washers in there, and when that thing's jammed against them all winter and it sits still, it's do it. So something to have a look at there. And the other thing is, don't leave. You can't see them right now, but don't leave your rods sitting in the corner, because if they sit there for like 6 months, every once in a while, for some unknown reason, a rod will take on a little bit of and it's not good. It used to be really bad in the old days with the fiberglass rods.
Yeah,
you'd pull them out the end of April in time for the walleye season. You'd yank them out, and it would be about the end of May before they went straight again. But with the money you invest in rods and that, now take care of the stuff, put it away. Take a lot better care of it. But that's monstrous. Like the Shimano Warranty Center in Peterborough will be inundated with people coming in the spring. Oh, my drag's not working right. It's jumpy. Well, it's because you had it jacked all the way down tight. And it just compresses all those little washers that are in there and everything, so you don't want that to happen. Simple little thing to do.
Awesome, Jim. Great tip. Thanks so much, as always, for sharing that and everything else that you do each and every Monday when you come here. As I said, Jim, your time is it's just priceless, and we can't thank you enough for all you do.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, buddy.
Right on. Sounds good.
Be
Till
good,
then,
Kitty.
absolutely. Lawrence is up next from a word before we have a word from our sponsor.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
What's up, Lawrence? How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you?
Fantastic. Always a pleasure to see you because I know you're raring to go. You've got all kinds of great segments and info and news items that, of course, we don't necessarily get a chance to see. And I'm looking forward to that because there is a shock factor because some of the stuff I haven't heard myself. But one thing you wanted to start with, and I think it's a great topic, especially this time of year, rock salt and the amount of salt that is being used on our roads. Obviously, we have the liquid version now that some would say is more harsh than rock salt. Some would say less harsh. There's a debate there. But at the end of the day, you're going to talk about what salt is doing to our fisheries and, more importantly, what it's doing to our water.
It's not really salt, right? It's not just salt. It's a chemical that's, tastes like salt. But maybe one of the listeners wants to just Google that quick and come up with the chemical name. I don't remember it off the top of my head here, but there is this chemical that, we use this sort of slurry now. So it's adjusted based on the surface temperature of the road. So if it's a little bit warmer, it doesn't need a lot of salt. It makes a little sand slurry mix and just to sort of keep it from icing up. And then the colder it gets, I guess, I don't know how the all mixture works, but it's supposed to save on the amount of salt. So there's all of that, right? All the salt we spread on the road. And every time it ice rains or it's about to ice rain, that happens a lot. And we're getting more of that. Just the way the weather pattern is. Look how up and down it is, right? It rains, it snows, it freezes, it rains, it snows, it freezes. We always are having these ice ups now.
100%. And of course, you will be able to get to see this podcast shared on Bluefish Radio. If you've missed it tonight, Lawrence has the incredible habit of sharing it on his own platform. So again, we thank you for that. And if you want, go to www.bluefishradio.com so that you can see this segment and many more that Lawrence and I have taped together. Sodium chloride is the chemical. Thanks so much, Ed, for sharing that. Interesting when you go up north, especially, and you see the evergreens that they're not so green anymore along the road's edge, especially when you're up north of, say, Temagami. I don't know what they use up there, if it's the liquefied version or if it is actual rock salt, but you will see, and it's just a swath of dead evergreens all along the road's edge. And some would say that it could be an infestation of bugs. Others will say it is it's a direct result from the rock salt and the salt that's used to keep our roads safe. Again, when you see that, it really hits home. Like, as important as it is to keep, people safe on our roads, what are we doing to our environment?
Yeah, and then you look at all the secondary roads out in the rural parts of Canada, they don't salt them, right? I mean, they're just, plowed, and you use good tires and beware. So it's not really that big of a problem. The big offenders are us city folk that, get all panicky when there's a little bit of ice on the sidewalk, when a little bit of ice gets on the road, and we want it all nice and, salted, and every fleck of snow melted away and scooped away and then melted, and no ice, and, less accidents. Everyone's walking around safely on the sidewalks. No one's falling down, breaking hips. Scotty, I lived in Sweden for a year, in the northern capital of Sweden. It was just 200 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle, in a city called Umeå of about 200,000 people. And they never salted anything. The buses had chains on their tires, and they never salted the sidewalks. There was a lot of old people with crutches by the end of the winter every year, from falling down and hurting hips and knees and so on. But people use little kicker sleds and stuff to scoot along the sidewalks with. It was quite a lot of fun. And but they never had rusty cars, right? As a result, they never salted anything. But they never had those flexibility in the climates that we have, and we don't have that lake effect that we have here either. So we're in a different boat. I mean, the temperatures pop up above freezing, then pop down below freezing. But my question to you is, where do you think all that melted, snow and salt is going?
Well, great question. I would like to say that it's properly being treated within our water catchment facilities, but at the end of the day, I would imagine the most of it is being leached back into the ground and into our underground water systems.
Well, used to be in the old, sewer storm drain system, it was one collection pipe that took away your sewage and your stormwater from your drains in the roads and brought it to the sewage treatment plant. Well, it used to just bring it and dump it into the river or the lake, right? And then they put up sewage treatment plants, and then they realized that trying to funnel all that through one sewage treatment plant is not possible. So that's when they started creating these valves to take the pressure off. If it got a lot of rain or a lot of melt in the winter, they would just open up the valves from those pipes and let it shoot right into the river or lake untreated, instead of backing up into people's houses. Modern cities now, I think since the 1980s, they set up two separate pipes. So you have your storm drain system and you have your sewage pipe under the road. The sewage pipe takes all your household and commercial and industrial and all that waste and brings it to the sewage treatment plant. The other pipe, the storm drains, all those grates in the roads, they just take it to the nearest river or lake and just shoot it in there.
Interesting. There is so much discussion in our comments section that I need to get to. Some great stuff in regards to some of the direct results. Pete's saying that up in Ramsey Lake, they have a green algae problem that has now been linked to the use of road salts. So that's disappointing to hear, but I'm not the least bit surprised. Mike Brands is talking about the use of beet juice. Now, I know I've heard that, especially in Toronto, and I forget who Richard was. Toronto uses it only when the temperature occasionally slips below -20. It's said to smell like soy sauce, molasses, or stale coffee when the snow starts melting. Again, at least it's organic, right?
Yeah. If it just flows into the river with the melted snow and ice, it's probably less of a problem, right? I mean, not all organics are toxic free. Some are quite toxic, but I'm sure they wouldn't have picked it if it didn't have a couple good things about it.
100%. Corey is talking about on the West Coast in Oregon, they use crushed up lava rock to put on the ice roads during icy conditions to give more traction. That's an interesting concept. Again, in relation to some of the sprayed and the liquefied salt that we're seeing, it's still calcium chloride, sodium chloride. It's just a mixture. What that mixture is, I'm sure, changes from municipality to municipality. And of course, this is something that was back in 2018 from Queen's University in regards to salt use on our roads and how it's bad for the environment. So that is a great link, Steve. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Good find. For sure, it reduced the amount of salt we put on the roads, because before it was just either it was on or not. Either we use salt and sand or just sand. When it got really cold, salt doesn't work anyways, just use sand. But it was either salt or no salt. Now they can sort of adjust it by, mixing it in with the water, and then they can sort of make a recipe, right? So they know exactly how much salt they need to put on to melt the ice based on the temperature and so forth.
Yeah.
So it saved a lot.
Silica, yeah, absolutely. Silica sand. I would prefer cable sand myself, but silica sand I have heard that has been used in the past.
Unused kitty litter.
Unused kitty litter. Yeah, I've heard that as well. Somebody had mentioned, and I forget where it is, but in regards to the what they put on our dirt roads, any of the gravel roads, to cut down on the dust. In most cases, they'll wet them down. But some of the far reaches where they're not able to get water, they use an oil base. It's an oil base basically that hardens and adheres sand to itself so that you don't get those big clouds and big.
Do they still do that? Because I know they used to use old motor oil for that, right? And then the gravel roads became sort of like almost like a pavement. But then they realized, holy crap, that's just a toxic mess they're creating out there. So that stopped after 20 or 30 years. But that's what they used for a long time. For decades, they used old motor oil.
I don't see it very often. Where I do see it from time to time is some folks will spread it on their own personal gravel roads. And again, we can't govern everybody, but needless to say, we are bringing to light some of the after effects and direct influence that we're having on the environment by using this. And again, that is a great link that Steve shared. I will put that up again. Make sure if you want to know more about what road salt is doing to your environment, to your fish, and our drinking water, by all means.
So Ottawa Riverkeeper did a study on this, and they're monitoring now the outlets into creeks that flow into the tributaries and the Ottawa River itself, and they're finding various levels of I guess salination in the outflow, depending after these melt events. That's when they go and test the water, and quite often it's reaching levels that will kill the frogs. So frogs breathe through their skin, and when they are submerged, they dig themselves a little into the bottom of the stream bed, into the mud. But when the water gets really salty like that, they can't breathe anymore, so they'll suffocate, because the chemicals just clog their skin pores. So it may be connected to the loss of frog population, right? Like the frog population has dropped everywhere, like significantly, and no one really knows why. So they're thinking this is a connection with that. And then there's the smaller fish and crayfish and other things that live in these creeks and rivers where it first enters usually most intense and most concentrated, right? That's where it's being dumped, and that's where they're measuring. So then it goes into bigger rivers, and it gets distilled and diluted. I shouldn't say distilled, but diluted. But it goes into the Great Lakes, and they know every year they test the salinity of the Great Lakes, and it's going up a little bit every year. Like those Great Lakes, they don't flush out every year, right? I think the fastest one is Lake Erie, and it takes 2.5 years. I think Superior takes, many hundreds of years to change the water level over, and the others are sort of somewhere in between. So we're pumping salt water into those lakes faster than it can get rid of it. And as a result, the salinity level of the Great Lakes is going up every bit. So, surprisingly, not a ton of research on fish health has been done, but they are doing it on the West Coast now. And they're finding that, salmon smolts are experiencing, it could be toxic and deadly to salmon smolts. And this could be another reason that salmon are declining on the West Coast.
It's interesting too. And I know I want to get to move on to some of the news segments that you're going to share, but it seems to me wherever you go, these big piles of rock salt seem to be stored very close to the water's edge.
Yeah, what's all that?
You go to the Bay of Quinte, you see the big piles of salt there. You go up to Perry Sound, they're right by the dock. It just seems like I was driving along the QEW, and there's huge piles of salt right on the shores of Lake Ontario. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's for efficiency of transportation. But again, I'm hoping our ministries and our companies and those who are policing them are doing their darndest to make sure that leaching doesn't occur. Because as I said, with what you're telling me, there's a good possibility that it's happening.
Mm-hmm. It's death by 1,000 cuts, right? In terms of the Great Lakes. I mean, no one's dying from it yet, but what's going to be like in 10, 15, 20 years from now? Is it going to get to that point where, holy crap, and what do we do then? What do we do then?
100%. So Steve, he shared that link that you were talking about in terms of the Ottawa Riverkeeper. By all means, the two links Steve has shared, please head over there, get informed. And when you are like Sally and you want to do your best to make sure that the folks that are visiting are safe, try to chip it, try to shovel it, try to throw sand, salt. It's easy, it's efficient, but at the end of the day, it's not doing wonders for our environment.
Thanks, Sally, because that's my last thought too, is we have a role in this too. Like we can pollute the end of our driveways with buckets of salt, and think we're doing a good thing. But yeah, Sally, you got it right. We got to minimize that ourselves. That'll help as well.
100%. Lawrence, I'm sure you've got a bunch of stuff that you want to share. Take
Let's
it away.
do it.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, it's Gord Pizer just published his 50 all-time favorite fishing spots in Outdoor Canada magazine's website to celebrate Outdoor Canada magazine's 50th anniversary. So there's a nugget.
Wow, 50 years.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah,
Oh,
and 50 hotspots, buddy.
50 hotspots. Oof, that'll be flying off the shelves. If Gord has anything to do with that, I would like to know some of Gord's favorite spots. Never mind the rest of you. I'm sure a lot of you would love to know some of Gord's favorite spots.
Yeah, he's been around for a while. He's got some good spots for sure. I mean, do we all have to travel up to Kenora to take advantage of these? But I think he gets around.
I'd
This is
be
Canada.
surprised to see how many. I would probably hazard a guess that there's just as many up north as there are down south, or at least in other provinces. Gord is one of those fellas that has fished just about anywhere and everywhere, I should say. So it'd be interesting to see what his hot spots are. But I'm sure there's a few down south here too.
Hey, there is a movement afoot to buy back commercial fishing licenses from Pacific salmon harvesters on the west coast of Canada. I think 1,300 of these fishing licenses are going to be bought back. The union of the fishing association out there, and remember, there's some of these licenses go back like decades, right? Decades. So they're claiming that it's underfunded. It doesn't have a clear sort of blueprint on how this is all supposed to happen, and it doesn't refund the harvesters of what they put into their business, right? Like if you're going to just pay them for the license, what about the nets and all the tackle and all the gear that they're not going to be able to use, and maybe their boats too? What are they going to do with that? I mean, if everyone's getting out of the racket of commercial fishing, what are you going to do with this stuff? They're feeling a little bit ripped off, they're feeling a little bit undervalued and really just lowballed. And at the same time, we're going to have more commercial fishing by First Nations communities out there. So some of these licenses are going to them, and that's not being transparent at all. And then there's also a movement afoot to, pay First Nations fishers to fish for other species and fish in other ways besides, going out with gill nets and going after salmon. So, it's all part of that $648 million commitment that was made by the federal government to help bring back the Pacific salmon. But I think we're all thinking, man, we need more information about all this. There needs to be more discussion. There needs to be more clarity on this.
100%. And, at the end of the day, too, I do remember you sharing this on several shows prior to this, that when it comes to the quotas out west, there is one individual that owns quite a few of them. But
Jimmy Patterson.
There's not too many that own a bunch of them. So when it comes to payouts, it's unfortunate that the angler, the grassroots angler that, mans the boat, goes out and does his fishing for the sake of the commercial aspect of it, is probably going to be rewarded very little from those who own those quotas, because those who own the quotas are going to do their best to make sure that they get every last penny. So again, is it a misrepresentation of the money that is actually being allocated to this? Or is it like everything else? All the money's going into the hands of one person.
We don't know. We just don't know, Scotty. Like, if that Jimmy Patterson, who's a very, very rich individual, I mean, he owns, I think all the giant commercial fishing boats. I'm talking the little fellas, right? That go out with one helper, go out on their own, or maybe have some person with them on board their boat. But that big fishing industry with the giant boats, the seiners, where they go out and circle them, are they going to get some of this? Are they going to be reduced as well? Is he going to get a big fat check out of this one guy?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because at the end of the day, if it's almost going down the same road as a lot of other situations, one individual gets the majority of the money and the rest of them all get crumbs, which unfortunately will be tragic and completely unfair.
Hey, how many different ways do you think there are to deter Asian carp from entering the Great Lakes?
Well, I know just talking to them doesn't work.
Asking them politely?
Asking them politely
in a good Canadian way?
Doesn't work, no.
Probably not.
What are some of the ideas that you've found?
Well, they've been using electrification, right?
Yeah.
They've been using bubbling. just fill in the canal is another way. Just put a dam there. So electrification and bubbling have been the systems to date. But, there was a lot of money allocated to this. Not all of it came through, unfortunately. But they're still pushing ahead to create these barriers. And there's a scientist who's now experimenting with sound waves. And he says he has proof that blasting the water with sound can deter the carp from coming through. Now, that sounds interesting.
It does actually, and it makes sense. Like, let's face it, noise underwater travels like it's unbelievable, and we've seen it when it comes to how whales, speak and communicate to one another. One thing that I did see, and I see them doing it a lot in Hamilton Harbor, is they put up these huge, whether it's for habitat reconstruction, but they use old Christmas trees that doesn't allow them to get close to the shores to do their spawning. Also, they use them like beaver dams as well to deter the migration of these fish. But we've talked about it at great length when it comes to the infrastructure for the lamprey eel, and we are hoping that this is also going to help with the mitigation of the Asian carp migration to our Great Lakes. Yeah. That infrastructure is extremely old. Are we putting any money towards that to rebuild that and revitalize that?
That's a good question. Like basically, you got to watch too. Like, do we want to take all the dams out? All the dams that are in place along the rivers that go into the Great Lakes, right? You take all those dams; those are natural barriers. You start taking them all out, and then the Asian carp get in there. Then they're going up those rivers and they're getting into other lakes and other places where they shouldn't be. So, yeah, be careful what you ask for. I mean, until we know. I mean, is it going to happen? Is it inevitable that it's going to happen? Yeah, the story hasn't been written on this one yet.
No, and Jeremy, you bring up a great point. We talk about this all the time. When you try to alter the migration of one fish, you have unknown effects to other fish when it comes to the shock waves and sound waves underwater. What does that do to the other fish in the system?
So they all become rock and roll fish and, smoking dubs and, like what are they going to play? Like Led Zeppelin and,
It's your story.
At least give them some, you don't want to give them something interesting. But
we'll have to give them a choice.
Yeah.
What's up next?
Okay. So maybe we need to be eating our fish choice meals when we buy fish. We need to be paying more attention to make sure it's caught sustainably, because there's a report out that says 30% of fish harvested commercially around the world, 30% are overfished. Their fish, the populations are reducing year by year. And that's pretty much what I understand. It takes about 10 years for once they find a fish stock, they circle it, they hammer it, and 10 years later, they move on because it's pretty much decimated. So that's been a kind of a commercial fishing practice that's taken place on the high seas and many, many coastlines of countries where they just, take a fat check and say, thank you very much, good luck to you, kind of thing to the foreign fishing vessels. The other 2/3, or about 60% of the commercial fish stocks around the world are being fished to their maximum allowable limit, so that there's no room for error, right? So there's no room to, overfish. If something happens, it could tip into the danger zone. So there's not many fish stocks that aren't being fished to their limit or, aren't being fished at all. We know this. So what does this mean for us as buyers of fish? Look for those labels. Like if you're in a restaurant, look for that Ocean Wise label. And if the restaurant doesn't have it in their labels and they're serving fish, ask the manager. If 2 or 3 of us or 4 of us ask that same manager over a season, they're going to go to and contact Ocean Wise and say, hey, look, we want to showcase the sustainable choices on our menu, and we want to prove that they are sustainable. Will you back us up on this? And that's what Ocean Wise does. They're huge now, just huge. It's a Canadian thing. It's run out of the Vancouver Aquarium. It's a nonprofit. They're taking all the money they get from these restaurants. It's about $1,000 a restaurant. The last I heard, $1,000 a year. The restaurants pay for this service. and they're funding it all back into conservation and research. So it's, it's not going into anyone's pocket. This is not a for-profit. This is a non-profit thing doing really cool stuff with it. Ocean Wise is just exploding. Support that through the restaurants. And then when you go to the fishmongers or restaurants, ask for that Marine Stewardship Council, that little beautiful bluefish. It doesn't look anything like our gorgeous bluefish, but it's a blue comparison, and look for that. And if they're not selling sustainably certified fish at your fish market, ask them why. Ask them, how do I know this is what you say it is and this is sustainable? I want proof. The more we ask, the better it's going to happen.
It's a great conversation that I think we need to have, more so than just here on shows like this, but on a global scale. A good friend of mine, Dave Helmer, who's down in Mexico right now. We were talking about this actually last night in regards to, he says, Scotty, we talk about catch and release and the importance of that with all of our Canadian lakes and what we're doing as anglers to try and foster that belief, be mentors, be stewards of our land. Yet he goes down to Mexico and he says, Scotty, every single fish that's caught comes to the boat, thrown in a pail, and is brought to shore. They don't understand the concept of catch and release. They don't understand the concept of sustainable harvest. So again, we have a long way to go when it comes to getting that message out. And we're talking like generations of people that we have to address. But, when it comes to the small stuff that we can do, absolutely, David, he never buys fish from the store. He prefers the organic and free range. Unfortunately, Richard has pointed out most fish in our stores are farmed. To the most part they are. And
and they're funny. They have funny labels now too. A lot of that farmed Atlantic salmon. Any Atlantic salmon you buy in a store is not wild. Okay, it all comes from fish pens. So any Atlantic. I know it's cheap. It's so cheap, but none of it is really good for the environment. That's for sure. I mean, we all know about the problem fish pens are posing on the coast of Canada on both sides, for sure.
100%. And Jeremy, this is interesting. Jeremy, as you know, is I don't know if he's an ordained chef, red seal chef, or what you call it, but I do know that he has worked many years as a cook and a chef in many restaurants. But they used to have an annual endangered fish list that he would refuse to buy for any of the restaurants that he worked at. Interesting. Now, this was back in the 2000s, he's saying. Be interesting to see if that is still a thing, because I do hear a lot about Chilean sea bass. I want to say that is a very endangered species of fish, but I hear it a lot on many menus. So I don't know if there's a different sea bass or if
it's just a fake name. It's a marketing scam. There's no such thing as a sea bass. It's a toothy fish that grows off the coast of Chile and many other places, and it's quite an ugly fish. It's a nasty, ugly, slimy fish, but you can't call them by their original name, which, hey, look that up, you guys. What's the original name of a Chilean sea bass? Because it's not pretty. And if you show a picture, it's even less pretty. But they couldn't market these things. It's like orange roughy. Orange roughy are seamount fish. They're 100, 150 years old. They catch them off the tops of mountains that are submerged in the middle of the ocean. They're eating 100-year-old fish when you're eating these orange roughy. It's all clever marketing.
Interesting. Again, always a plethora of information you are. Steve, thanks so much for sharing these links to ocean.org and, of course, their Facebook page, just to get us more wise, more educated, more informed. So we appreciate that. We got time for one more, Lawrence.
Okay, this is good news. Gold River in Vancouver, Alberta, not Vancouver, but Alberta, just heard word that $100 million onshore fish farm is being established in Gold River. So this is a closed containment system that'll be not in the ocean, with circulating water pumps. And the nice thing about closed containment is they filter the water. So they do take in new water and they do release water, but the water being released is filtered before it goes back. The sewage from the fish is being filtered out and being sold as fertilizer. And because it's a closed system, they don't have to use any antibiotics, or they don't have sea lice issues. They don't use pesticides because it's a closed system. There's no contamination, right? It's like a surgical ward in a hospital, a surgical room. It's a clean site. So the fish live in an antibiotic-free area, free of pestilence, And the trick is these big ponds, they make these big concrete tanks that are in a circle, and then they have a current, so the fish are constantly swimming, because that's what salmon like to do. So perfecting that technology is happening, and there's a lot of these happening, and it's great news that we're getting one of these in Canada, another one of these in Canada.
It is, as long as we're feeding these fish something that is organic in its own.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, when it comes to farm-raised fish, and I think everybody would agree, it's what those fish are being fed that is our biggest concern. What is their diet? What is it consist?
Not other fish, not pellets made from other fish, because it used to be the pellets they fed Atlantic salmon in those pens. It took about 5 or 6 pounds of pellets to make 1 pound of Atlantic salmon. So you're taking 5 or 6 pounds of other fish, grinding it up, turning it into a pellet, feeding it to a salmon to eat that salmon. 5 pounds of fish to eat to get 1 pound of salmon. 100%. So that it's ridiculous. So that's why David Suzuki, and you can cringe if you want when I mention his name, but he did invest in a company and to help get it going that's creating fish pellets for these operations that is organic, that not organic, but is sustainable, and it's not using other fish to feed fish. It's using more vegetable type matter.
Yes, and 100%. There's a whole bunch out there. BioChio is one big name that was in the aquaculture. Yeah, and it's very, very expensive. It's great for fish that are smaller, not so much for the larger fish, but that was one. And Steve is mentioning something in regards to liver pellets. Liver almost to the stage of blood pellets. Of course, that is the biggest no-no. When it comes to raising our fish, growing our fish, feeding our fish, when it comes to these farm-raised facilities, if we could somehow get some science, some work done in that area when it comes to refining the feed of fish. We've done it with just about every animal that we raise, right? And when it comes to chickens, when it comes to cow, it's not a perfect science, but at the end of the day, we are not completely toxifying ourselves like we are with some of these farm-raised fish. And some of them are overseas where they're not even being policed. So just on our own soil, I like the idea of containment. I like the idea of being able to filter the water, because I think that is something that is crucial that we're trying to get away from with those pens. So there's some great positives. That's a great topic that you just brought up.
Oh, happy, Ben. Happy to do it. And thanks for letting me do all this today. I appreciate it, buddy.
As always, Lawrence, it is totally our honor and our pleasure to have you each and every Monday to share this stuff. And again, if you want to go back and see some of the other podcasts that Lawrence and I have done, bluefishradio.com is the place to go. Again, Lawrence, thanks so much for your time.
Apple Podcasts, a lot of them tune in. A lot of them have Bluefish Radio. So normally where you can find a podcast, you can find the Bluefish Radio show.
Fantastic, dude. Have yourself a great week, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
And Jason Barnucz right after this.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
As always, J-Dog's in the house. It is Monday, and it just wanted to say,
dude, it's ice fishing season. Everybody has to watch Grumpy Old Men, or at least go ice fishing and listen to polka music. I couldn't help myself, buddy.
Buddy, that's awesome, man. I love that. That kind of creativity is what keeps us around long after the hour goes by. And of course, Jay is our anchor man. He's there to make sure that he fills in some of the gaps that some of our previous lads have dished out. Of course, when it comes to Lawrence, it's just an onslaught of information. And of course, Jim talks about a lot of the stuff that has gone on in yesteryear and some of the new stuff that we have seen advance. I have to ask you though, Jay, right off the bat, I forget what the site was that I went to, but they were talking about and showing pictures of yesteryear and what ice fishing looked like back when it was black and white pictures.
Yep.
One of the questions I asked Jim, and it's the same question I'm going to ask you. Is there something that you do now that you have always done when you first started to ice fish?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing that's the same now, because we were talking before the show, and I think like even the blue clam, the clams that we see now, the flip over shelters, they've only been around for 25 years, ballpark. In Canada, the first ones came through around 2000. They were made a bit earlier than that, but not much really. So, so we're looking at 25 years. Before then, the only thing that's probably the same now is a plastic sled. And I can remember the first black plastic sled I ever bought, Scotty, and it was square. It wasn't even rectangular. It was square. And I remember I dragged it for so many years ice fishing that I remember going on Lake Simcoe on the Cooks Bay with Will Wegman probably 20 years ago. And I had never realized that I'd worn it out so there was holes in the bottom. And that day it was kind of slushy. Not slushy, actually. It was glare ice, but there was a bit of water on top. As I pulled it, it was filling with water because the water was coming up through the cracks through that old sled.
Wow.
Yeah, but the thing about those days, though, is what did I have? I had an old Carhartt suit, one-piece Carhartt, which I used for winter steelheading and for ice fishing. And I'm going to tell you that, with those days, I used to cherry pick the days I went. I didn't go on the coldest days anymore.
Yeah.
The odd time I would steelhead on those minus 30 days, if the bite was really good, dude, I would fish for 20 minutes and then sit in my car for 20 minutes, right? And then, but ice fishing, it was basically everything has changed now. I have other than a sled, everything else is different.
It's true. Yeah. And as I said, it was interesting to see some of the old photos where they had, the drums, the steel drums, and they had a fire there. Basically, once you parked it, that's where you were going to be for however long you could last out on the hardwood.
Yeah.
Whether the wind picked up, temperatures dropped, snow started to fall, wherever you were is not like it is today, where we're able to drill multiple holes and move as the fish do. But it was just interesting to see a lot of things that haven't changed when it comes to building community, getting groups out fishing, some of the events that would go on, ice skating, hockey. It was the winter wonderland that was in our north, and not that far north, was truly something awesome. And I remember it as a kid myself. There was no shortage of fun and things to do.
No, we were up at the cottage last weekend for Heather's birthday, and we went out for dinner the one night in Wilberforce, and Heather and I and the kids, and Trevor was talking about ice fishing and all the gear and stuff. And Heather's like, your dad used to go with his buddies, hike into a back lake with a spool of line, and he would cut a cedar branch or break a cedar branch off and tie the line to the tip of the cedar branch and wait for the cedar branch to tip over. And we'd sit on the shore and make a fire. And Trevor's like, you really did that, Dad? I'm like, yeah, dude, I did that with I literally carried all my tackle in my pocket. I had hooks and some sinkers and probably some night crawlers that I kept close to my body so they didn't freeze. And we would hike into these little brook trout lakes. And now I carry enough gear that I need to bring a whole team of Sherpas to drag the shit around. So it's changed, man. It's really changed a lot, but it's also a lot of fun. Ice fishing is a lot of fun. And I'm so happy this past weekend. I didn't see anyone else out there. I fished with a couple friends. I'm not going to lie. We put our shelters close together. And in fact, I was looking through Richard Elliott's post, and I'm pretty sure in one of his pictures, he captured our little group on Couchiching of all the people out there.
Yeah.
But it was just great to get out. Trevor and I got out Saturday, caught, I'm not going to say we caught a bunch of fish, but we caught some good fish. We probably got 24 perch, kept a few. We caught a bunch of pumpkin seeds in about 22 feet of water, which the hut beside us didn't catch one pumpkin seed. We caught over 20. We caught, got some nice northerns. I'm going to say nice northern pike because we're using perch tackle. I'm using a 3-pound test and we're landing northern pike. And then what else? Oh, we got a couple out of season largemouth. I'm not going to lie to CFN community. Our one, so the one hut beside us, they lost a walleye. And the other hut to the north, our buddy just north of us, he had a bowfin swim by his hole in 22 feet of water. So, like Couchiching is always a tough place, but it's always one of the first places with consistent ice. And I'll tell people, please, like, ice is inconsistent this year with all the freezing and thawing. But I think for Central Ontario right now, Couch has decent ice. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you to go there, but go there and be cautious. But it's a pretty safe bet that the ice is good. And what's nice about Couch too is there are, like, Caleb Johnson, a few others, they're giving good updates on ice reports, and it's nice to have that information. John White too. So, and Simcoe starting to freeze over a little bit in spots, but boy, is this process ever taken time this year, Scott.
100%.
It really is.
And I feel for everybody who's jonesing. Again, I can't emphasize enough, though, when we see some of the folks that are going out on this paper thin ice, I cringe. I just cringe. We don't need to hear anymore or put our first responders in any kind of unneeded danger. But at the end of the day, just stay safe. Hang on. Whether it's this next year, it's not worth your life. Are you able to share anything that was working really well for you this past week?
Yeah, you know what? I will do that. So a couple things. I tried a couple new things out. So this is oh geez, I have a dried up maggot on there. We're gonna get rid of that. That's disgusting. Okay, so on the Simcoe Couch, like a slab grabber, this is the new slab grabber drain pipe. So it's double-sided. There's copper, that brass on one side, and the silver on the other. And it's a lot heavier than a typical slab grabber. And what's nice about that is when you're fishing in 20 plus feet of water, this gets down a little bit easier. So which is nice. So a lot of times a slab grabber it'll want to just swing off to one side. This one still does, but it can really get down a lot quicker. I just have that rigged up on, that's 3-pound test leader fluorocarbon and on braid line. I just like using braid when I'm fishing that deep. So that worked really well. And I was tipping that with maggots. Shout out to Matt at H&H Tackle in Brantford. Matt's maggots are back and available again. So that was working really well. And then actually kind of two things here. So 1 inch, that's a 1 inch gulp minnow. And I was just hooking that. This is what we were dead sticking with. We caught a lot of fish on this. So that is an ultra tungsten ice jig. And what's great about the ultra tungsten ice jig is it's got a pretty long hook on there. So a lot of tungsten jigs that I use, it's got a really short shank. It's hard to thread plastic on there because it's so shank, and you nose hook a plastic, which is fine, but the fish will take that off. But the short shanked ones are great just for putting a few maggots on or a waxworm. With that long shank, you can thread a plastic bait on there. So those little 1 inch gulp minnows, and kind of a trick though. So this rod is called a Perceptip rod. I talked about this rod last year. I'm trying to line this up. So it's all tip in that front. It just loads right up. So literally what we do is so we have those, those black foam pads.
Yep.
So Trevor and I put those down across the floor between us. One, keep our feet off the ice, keeps us warm when it's cold out there. And two, it actually, when your heater's going for a bit, it gives you a nice place to put your stuff. So I don't even bother with a rod holder. I literally just lay this. This is my inline reel with 3-pound fluorocarbon. And if I'm not jigging it, I'll dead stick with this rod. And I'll just lay it on the ice, and I'll just watch that tip just slowly load up. So one thing that Trevor figured out this weekend, I'll give him credit, he didn't know this. So when we had our Lake Simcoe power box beside us with the glow cup, okay, these Perceptip rods from Fenwick, that actually glows right there. So when it's dark in the shelter, you can actually watch and see your bite with that glow tip. So it was a 1-2 punch, man. And all the fish, even the big pike, right there, man, 3-pound fluorocarbon. Like, you don't need anything else for those panfish. For perch, crappie, 3-pound fluorocarbon is my favorite. Love it. Love
Well,
it.
you know, and of course you can dead stick when you're using stuff like maggots or live minnows, but with those impregnated plastics, you know, don't be fooled. As much as you need to jig them and give them lots of lifelike
Yeah.
motion, every once in a while you'll be surprised that just dead sticking one of those, you know, impregnated plastics, you'll get a bite or two.
Yeah, and use your electronics too to keep your baits up off the bottom. So like with perch, a lot of people are asking about, you know, why I'm using like such a big, like that's a pretty big slab grabber for perch, and not just because it gets down, but it gives you a lot of flash. And if we aren't marking fish, and we would have schools and fish come through, so I'm working it pretty hard, right? You're getting that flutter, and a lot of times I don't care if I catch a fish on it. I just want to bring fish in, and then they'll come in and grab that small tungsten jig. Yeah, good tip too, Dave. So using perch eyes too. So we'll tip a tungsten jig with a perch eye once in a while too. That actually works really, really well. So yeah, it was just a great day to get out and covered a lot of water and really fished some new areas too, which was a lot of fun, which I like exploring. So
100%. And it's interesting, you know, with even as poor as the ice is on, say, Lake Nipissing, George is telling us in the first 2 weeks there was over 90,000 hours of fishing with almost 60,000 walleye caught.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
And that's when the walleye fishing on Nipissing is not that great, Scotty.
Wow. Incredible. Fernando's asking a question in regards to the spool tension knob. Works on the Fluger inline reel.
So basically what I'll do is I'll give you this will actually work. So the way this inline reel works is when I pull the trigger, that spins and then it drops. Okay, I'll do that again. So the bait, you can't see the whole bait in the one frame here, but when I pull that trigger, I let go and it stops. What you want to do, Fernando, is on the back, and every inline reel has a similar sort of feature. On the back of this Fluger, right there, that little gold brass knob, it's a less and more switch. So it's more like a bait caster. So I can increase or decrease that spool tension. So if I'm running an inline or a heavier lure, I want that reel to spin less, right? So if I'm casting with a bait caster on light bait, I want to make sure that I can control that spool tension. So I will adjust it tighter with a small bait. If I run a bigger spoon or a bigger ice jig, I'll increase that spool tension. And then to kind of calibrate it, Scotty, when I'm letting it down under the ice, when I release that trigger, I want a constant fall, and I'll see that fall on my graph. You know, and honestly, this is just a great reel. And again, 3-pound test, fluorocarbon, and we landed several pike in that sort of 20 to 24 inch range. You know, even with this rod, you know, you've done this, Scott. You get a big fish on, you just stand up, put the whole rod down the hole, right? And that fish is just going left and right. And, you know, it handled it no problem. The only thing I find with this rod is that tip is so sensitive or soft that anything more than about a 1/16 ounce, if I go to 1/4, 1/8 even, it loads that rod tip too much. It's really just for lighter baits. But with the inline reel and fluorocarbon, that gets that bait down that deep water pretty quickly. So
great tip though in regards to throwing the tip of your rod down a hole. If you are, I mean, you'll when you set the hook, you'll know. But when you feel that load up and you know you've got something big, that is probably one of the best things to do is pull your transducer out as quick as you can and get that tip down the hole, because when she goes, she's gonna go.
Well, and so we have a pretty good little, I call it the fire drill. So the fire drill is, you know, so we got 4 holes across in a hut about 6 feet apart, about 6 to 8 feet across the entire hut, and we have 4 holes kind of spread out. So Trevor and I, if we get a big fish on, and you know right away if it's a good fish, first thing I'll do is I'll go over and I'll grab his Vexlar and lift it out of the hole, so the transducer's out. And then I start bringing lines up like as quick as we can. And then I get down on my knees and if it's my fish, he gets down at his knees. And basically, you know, we're coaching each other because you got to keep that line down the hole. And yeah, we had a couple of massive tangles, like, you know, and it's funny how sometimes the smallest perch causes the biggest mess, to be honest. But you kind of have to have a bit of a fire drill. Just watching your buddy fight a fish and trying to get it on film is nice. You really got to have a plan when you get a big fish on.
100%.
So, but yeah, it worked out pretty well. We landed some big fish. Too bad about those big largemouth. They're just so disappointing when they come to the hole after fighting it. And we were hoping for a big walleye on Cooch because there are some nice walleye in there. I even saw at Callum's today, he posted a picture of a big muskie they got at his outfitters on the weekend. So
again, this was a question that has come up, and I'm so glad you brought that up because, you know, we wrestle with it. You know, we want to honor and respect all of our muskie lovers. And, you know, we sometimes will get pictures sent to us for edits. We always try to do our very best to make sure we take the background out. And for simple reasons, a lot of folks, you know, when they see muskie being caught through the hard water, it has to come up a hole. And sometimes that hole isn't the perfect size for the fish. So we don't want, you know, any kind of criticism or controversy. At the end of the day, we do our best to try and post what we think is ethical and won't get everybody unraveled. But when it comes to muskie, is there a do and don't when it comes to ice fishing with them and for them?
Yeah, that's hard to say. Like, even can be said about even northern pike, even though because they're in season, you know, should I be fighting it out as long as I usually fight it out? It's hard to say. That's a tough one. Like, I think it's fishing. And so if I was catching lots of pike in an area, one, I'd probably start losing lots of tackle on 3-pound tests. I got lucky on what I had. And I'd probably switch rods, or I might just even fully move. Even if I was catching, we only caught a couple largemouth, but if I caught a lot, we would move. So it's about ethics. But you at the same time, as an angler, you're going to bring these fish through the hole best you can. I think most fish like that, ice fishing, like big muskies, any kind of big east socket, like a northern pike or a muskie, a lot of these fish are lost, man. Like even all the big quinny walleye, how many big walleye do anglers lose before they finally land one? A lot. It happens. You know, I talked to a lot of buddies on the weekend. You know, quinny was fishing pretty well from what I heard. We don't want to talk about quinny too much because the ice is really sketchy down there, but a lot of fish were lost as much as caught. And that's fishing. That's why it's not called catching. I know my friends hate that joke, but that's true, right?
100%.
So yeah, but dude, I taught Trevor a long time ago, and my buddies and I do this. When you're ice fishing, it is full combat to get those big fish through that hole. If you're fishing with me, Scotty, and you get a big fish on, I'm coaching you the whole time. Yeah. I am going shoulder deep to get that fish for you. I'm pinning it on the inside of the hole and I'm dragging it out. And if my arm is not soaking wet and you lose that fish, that's my fault. That is my fault. So yeah, dude, I get right in there. That's all part of it, dude. That's all part of the fun, man. It's the high fives and everything else and is afterwards. I love ice fishing for that reason. I really do.
It's interesting, you know, you say that, and then you see folks that'll put on like a trailer treble hook or something like that on whatever bait it is that they're using. And, you know, I'm like, wow, as much as I appreciate the fact that you're trying to ensure your hook set, I'm not going to appreciate that when that's, you know, sticking out of my finger when I put my hand down the hole to grab your fish. So it's a double-edged sword to say the least. But yeah, no, good.
And you know what? So two things about trailer hooks on quinny. I hardly ever use trailer hooks. What I do is if the spoon I'm using is a number 4 spoon, number 4 treble on that spoon, I'm going up a size. I'm going to a number 2. I'm going to go one size bigger. I don't like stinger hooks. I find they get caught on the edge of the ice too much. I have a hard enough time getting that fish in that hole, in that 8.5, 9-inch hole for my K drill. I don't want to have any chance of that fish coming off. And I know the stingers. I've had my heart break more because of stingers than landed more big. I've lost more big fish because of them. I really have. That's just my own.
And,
Yeah.
and is Jay alone in that? That's interesting. I've never heard too many people, not complain, but mention it like that. In fact, a lot of folks
So
would not fish.
I have a funny story to share from Alicia. She's actually commented there. So we were on Rice Lake a couple years ago for first ice, and she might have hooked into an out of season walleye, but at the time we were using like panfish outfits. Don't know what she has, and she kind of got exposed to what Trevor and I go through all the time. I literally just ran over to her hole, like came sliding into home, got I stopped right at her hole, and I'm fully coaching her. She didn't even ask me to do that. I just do that naturally, man. I just get, if someone's got a fish on, especially a big fish, I'm dropping all my stuff and I'm running right to that hole, and I'm helping that person get that fish out, because I'm as excited, if not more, than the one who's got the fish on. Seriously.
And it's so true. You and I have talked about that at great length. You know, I'm a firm believer, and I know you are as well, when it comes to the fun, the true fun.
Yeah.
Watching others catch fish, because sometimes, you know, they're out there, you know, their hopes, because they're hanging out with Jay, that, you know, Jay's going to put me on fish, and I haven't really had a great day of angling. I don't know what to expect. And when you see the emotion, when you see that general appreciation from people when they've hooked into something, you're going to do your darndest to make sure they get a photo of it and get to see it, because there's a reason they're out there with you.
and it's fun too. Like even with the huts, like we'll set our huts up like pretty close together.
Yeah.
Just so we can trash talk a bit, play some tunes, like during those slow periods. Yeah, that's ice fishing, man. It's a very social sport. It really, truly is. It's a lot of fun. And it's a type of sport that, so Scotty, if a bunch of us all met up on Koochiching with our boats and our kayaks, like we're still going to keep our distance from each other, right? But when all of us go ice fishing, we'll fish side by side. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Very cool. What have you got upcoming?
The stinger. Well, you know, George, but maybe that's why there's so many walleye being caught out of Nipissing, is your stinger hooks were that good. maybe you should do the walleye a favor and take those stinger hooks off, George. I'm just kidding. Wow. Yeah, and Alex Dalby. So Alex, who's on tonight, he's a buddy of ours he's local here in Norfolk, and he was up on Nipissing on the weekend. And so not only was the fishing on Cooch a little slow, I'm getting text messages from friends who are ice fishing all over the place. I had friends like all over Southern Ontario. He's getting messages from his friends. I'm getting messages from my friends, and we're catching fish and we're sharing ice fishing stories. Like, oh, Johnny's up catching brook trout and Alex is up on Nipissing, and we're like, dude, it was just a lot of fun. And maybe we would have caught more fish if we weren't looking at our phones all the time. But I was during the slow periods when there's no marks on the graph. I was fully getting messages from people all over Ontario, at least this northern Ontario, catching fish, which was awesome.
Well, and this is the thing, Jay, and we have that luxury of being the billboard, if you want, for folks that are out fishing.
Yeah.
You know, they want to show us, they want to share, you know, what they're doing. They want to share their catches. Again, we have the luxury of Steve and Walter and myself to not only share it, but post it, feature it, and make it something that is everlasting for those who that remember it. And at the end of the day, we're all mentors, and by the sounds of it, you guys are doing your part to keep Canada fishing, as we are so set and true here.
Well, I'm gonna before I sign off, I'm gonna share a couple quick pictures. So I'm gonna share a picture of Trevor, and thanks to you guys for, you know, doing your magic, man. So there's Trevor's, one of his first fish for the season, with his Lake Simcoe Power Box toque. And we'd had a great day. And Enzo's such a great guy, and we love supporting Enzo and Trevor's. I'm very proud of the work that Trevor's done with Enzo. So kudos to Trevor and for Enzo for doing a great product. And you know what? That's not the biggest fish, but that is one happy angler right there to get out finally get out ice fishing, right?
And not only that, I'm sure his voice is starting to drop a bit. I'm sure his height is starting to grow a bit, and I that coif that he's got underneath the toque, I'm sure that's not the only hair that is growing.
No, he's dude. He is 5'9" and a bit, and he's sporting a size 12 Baffin Titan right now. So taken after the old man. But I got to show you this one. We were
Nice.
talking about cats, and that's from Hamilton Harbor, about 3 or 4 winters ago. And now listen, Hamilton Harbor rarely freezes. Like that's like a once a decade opportunity. But that particular winter, for every nice walleye I caught, and there's some big walleyes in Hamilton Harbor. Remember, Lake Ontario walleyes, same population as Bay of Quinte, right?
Yeah.
For every big walleye I caught 3 channel cats like that or bigger. They were channel cats everywhere out there. It was a ton of fun. Of fun.
I can't imagine the fight. I have never caught one myself through the ice, but I can only imagine the fight.
30 feet of water on a glow-in-the-dark buckshot with a minnow head, and the channel cats, at least out there when those for that couple weeks bite window we had, they would move even slower than like a walleye. Like they would creep up, but on a flasher, Scotty, the red line is super thick because they're such a big fish.
Yeah.
But that red line would be so big and moving so slow, and I'm just teasing that buckshot up on the screen, right? And then all of a sudden you just feel not even a hard hit. You would just feel like dead weight, and you reel down on that 3-foot medium heavy Fenwick and just load into it, and the rod just doubles, and all you feel is this big head shakes. And the first time I caught one, I got it to the top of the ice pretty quick. I'm like, what is this? It was actually at night. It was dark. Then the thing took off running, and I'm like, was this a lake trout? What is going on here? Because walleye don't do that.
Nope.
And it was a channel cat. It was unbelievable how many channel cats are in Hamilton Harbor. Yeah, I'm just awesome. Just awesome.
Unreal. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dave. Listen, as always, dude, thanks again for spending your time with us on Mondays. Again, furthering the passion. You got my hairs standing up on end just from that cat story. So we appreciate it, dude. We want to wish you a great week, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing more about your tales next Monday. Right.
Yeah.
Here.
Thanks, everyone. We got some mild weather coming this week. I don't think we're going to lose a ton of ice, but it's definitely not going to make much more. So let's be careful out there. And if anyone's got any questions about the gear I'm using, just drop me a message try and track me down somehow. We got lots of links to my stuff in the chat. Feel free to any way you need. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Right, you take care. Yeah. We got Mike Consul coming up next right after this. Mike, thanks. We got, isn't that cute?
This is MJ, our newest CFNer right here. Today, she is 1 month old.
Unreal.
Say hi, MJ.
I
haven't bought her a rod and reel yet, but that's going to come shortly.
She is growing. Holy smokes. Wow.
10 pounds. So 10 pounds, 30 days old.
Unbelievable. Yeah, baby. So adorable indeed, Erica. 100%. MJ, it's always nice to see you. Mike, you as well. Again, Merle's probably in the background doing mother duties, so we appreciate your time with us.
It's my shift right now, so I got to be quick because, it's daddy's shift until midnight, and then it's mommy's shift after midnight. So
all right, well, let's get right to it. I'll share your screen. Of course, we went over the Facebook version of what the Winter Fish Fest is going to look like and what folks have to do in order to get them set up and qualified. Mike,
yeah, that's what I want to focus on today, the Facebook portion of the CFN Fish Off. But as you can see, it's also on the website. People are saying, I missed the opportunity to buy a CFN Fish Off hoodie. Check out the back.
Sweet.
This year, it's even different because this year, the supplier is allowing us to put whatever name you want on your chest or whatever name you want on the sleeve, or rather than putting your name, you can put whatever logo you want. So I have my Caught by Console logo. So if you want to customize your CFN Fish Off hoodie, just go to cfnfishoff.com, order it up, tell us what name, what logo, however you want to customize it. The prices are all there. So check it out. But today I am talking about the Winter Fish Fest. So all you got to do is go to cfnfishoff.com. You'll see some awesome pictures from Camp McIntosh. You'll see how to order your hoodie. I want you to click Winter Fish Fest right there. And as Scotty said, there's 2 ways to participate. You can participate through the MyCatch app. That's option 1. Or you can participate directly through Facebook. And there's 2 ways. We have a video prize, and that's option 2 right here. But what I want to talk about today is the family prize. And what are the family prizes? Well, we have a whole bunch of prizes. Go check it out. Thank you, Meeks. Thank you, Powcasting. Thank you, Ugly Boys Baits. Thank you to Camp McIntosh and all the other sponsors, including Bait to Go and Outdoor Flavors. We have some amazing prizes, and all you got to do is catch fish. It's free. And if you want to get in on the Facebook-based prizes, the information is there, including 3 days, 2 nights at Camp McIntosh. Come join us. And this is Scotty. This is what makes you smile, our Going Back to Roots family-based prizes. And all you got to do, and Scotty mentioned at the beginning, is let us know who is in your family. People are asking, do they have to have the same last name? Nope. Do they have to be blood related? Nope. You let us know who's your family. I could say, you know what? You know who my family is? It's me, Scotty, Jason, and whoever else we want to put in.
Big Jim.
Big Jim and Lauren. That's our family. And what we're going to do is, if you want that to be your family, all you got to do is post a photo of your family to the CFN Fish Off Facebook page. And that post becomes the way you enter all your ballots. So it could be Bonnie and Terry from Alberta. They decide we're going to be a family. Or it could be the Lowens, and they're going to post a family photo. And with that family photo, underneath your post, make sure to put the hashtag CFN Fish Fest, so we know it's for the Fish Fest. Hashtag your family name, and it doesn't have to be the same last name. And then hashtag focus on family, include your family photo, and then underneath that photo, post every single species that you catch. So here's an example right here. So let's say it's the Consul family, and we actually don't have the same last names. So I'll post a perch. Hey, that's 1 ballot. My daughter will post a perch. That's the 2nd ballot. My wife will post a perch. As you can see, she has a different last name. That's another ballot. So for every species, we would get a ballot, and every angler would get a ballot for that species. And let's say that same day or another day, any day between February 1st and February 28th, we catch a crappie. I catch a crappie. Merle catches a crappie. Summer catches a crappie. There's 3 more ballots right there. And then maybe I'm lucky enough to catch a burbot. So I can keep accumulating as many ballots as I can per family, per species. And then that's all you got to do. And then, Scotty, you could tell them, how do you post the photo? How do we know this photo is not from 2015? How do we know this photo is not from 10 years ago?
We're going to share it today, but since Mike is asking, we'll share it anyway. How you are going to legitimize your photo is going to be real simple. Everybody's talking about what we used to do in the past with a catchphrase, the video that pays, the phrase that pays. We came up with all kinds of cliches. This is going to be real simple. All we need is a selfie of you holding your fish with your tongue sticking out. Simple.
Just like this.
That's it.
Or like this.
That's all.
Or like this.
Selfie with your fish and your tongue sticking out. That's it.
So, Scott, if you can make your screen a little bigger, I want you to show them an example of you holding a fish with your tongue sticking out.
So here's what we'll do. I don't know if I don't have a fish, and I wish I did, but I couldn't even. Let's say I got a lure. I got an SFC lure. So this is my fish, because this is usually the size that I catch. I've got my phone. I got my phone here, and I'd stick my tongue out. That's it. Snap the picture. Hashtag what Mike had just mentioned. Hold up your fish, stick your tongue out, and you just qualified.
It doesn't have to be a selfie. If you're fishing with other people or they're part of your family, just have you hold the fish, stick your tongue out. It could be tongue on the left side, tongue on the right side, tongue up, tongue down. It doesn't matter. Stick your tongue out, hold the fish, post it onto your family posts. So not a new post, but under your family posts, there should be a whole bunch of comments. All the perch you catch, all the crappie you catch, all the pike you catch. Put that under your family post, and then we have a special focus on family draw. So
Yes.
that's the way we do it. February 1st to 28th. Join us. Join us for our Winter Fish Fest, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on the MyCatch app, whether it's a solo angler on the app, or whether it's your family on Facebook. Join us. There's a lot of great prizes. And, you know, we're all anglers. We love to share our catches, and it'll be a fun, great time.
Right on, buddy. Yes, absolutely, Tony. No measuring this year. It's just a picture of a fish. And of course, Jeremy, if you want to stick it in your mouth, we will leave it up to the judges to decide whether that is legit. We prefer to see the tongue just to make sure that it legitimizes your catch. But if you can somehow doctor that in, will be interesting to see the kind of creativity that you come up with. At the end of the day, this is not going to be a strict tournament in the sense of following exactly the rules. We love to see your creativity. We want to laugh. We want to have fun with you. So, you know what? It's not to say that we won't adhere to a strict rule and not justify or legitimize any kind of catch. We'll see. But as I said, it's very simple. Hold your fish, take a selfie, get somebody else to take your picture, hold up your fish, stick your tongue out, and that's it. Easy.
We want to focus on two things. One, family, and making it fun.
Amen.
So stick your tongue out, make it fun, go out fishing with your family, show us all your catches, and maybe your family will win some of our awesome prizes courtesy of our CFN sponsors.
Right on, brother. Well, listen, Mike, as always, I know you got duty. Appreciate your time, dude. Keep up the great work. And as I said, I can't wait. February 1st is just around the corner.
Yep. Tony's saying your tongue, Scotty, is bigger than the fish you catch.
It is, Tony. 100% bang on. Right on, dude. Mike, you have yourself a great night, my friend.
All right. And just to answer Corey's question, doesn't matter where you live, anywhere across Canada, send in your fish either through the MyCatch app or directly on Facebook. For all the details, go to cfnfishoff.com. Have a good night, everybody.
Right on, Mike. You take care. Dave, it's been a great show. Love you all. Hope you guys have a fantastic week. Stay safe out on that ice. Go to Cooch, just as George Morgan keeps mentioning. That's where the safe ice is. Be wary, though. Make sure you bring a spud bar, and when in doubt, spud out. But again, love to see your pics. Make sure that you send it to our inbox at the Canadian Fishing Network Facebook page. Hit the message, send a message, whatever it is. Steve, Walter, or myself will get to your edit, and we love sharing your content. So keep up the great work. Thanks to all of you who stayed this long with us. Go enjoy your night. Go enjoy your week. Go enjoy some fishing on the hard water. Dave, take us away. We'll see you next Monday. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.